Hey, it's Todd, and today we're going to talk about the rules of composition. But who needs rules? We're rebels, scallywags, ne'er-do-wells. Look, there's a lot of things to worry about when you're on set shooting video. Your camera settings, your lights, your sound, the cast, the crew, when's lunch coming? Are you gonna be able to get a cool behind the scenes photo to prove to everybody that you have a real job? Hashtag film life. So before you get into all the technical weeds of camera settings and gluten-free options, pointing your camera and knowing how to get the best shot possible to tell your story is one of the most important things you'll do. It's going to inform everything from lighting to sound to your actor's performance. It's really important. So are gluten-free options though too. So let's talk about the rules of composition so you can get the best shot to tell your story. And sure, rules are made to be broken, but first master the rules and then you can break them. Let's do this. All right, so the first rule I want to talk about is shoot horizontally. Look, shooting vertically, I get it. It makes a lot of sense to shoot vertically for certain social media apps, as that's how we see it on our phone. But as human beings, we don't see the world vertically. We don't have blinders on. Our widest field of vision is left to right. It's horizontal. So that's why television screens and movie screens are also widest horizontally. So I would recommend to you, shoot horizontally. All right, so the next rule I want to talk about, we're gonna have to level here. Keep your camera level and your lines straight. Now look, sometimes I realize that you want to have your characters or your scenes to be off balance, and you might not have your camera level in those situations, but for the majority of the time, you're going to want to make sure your camera is level. This is how you can do that. So if your camera's on a tripod, you probably have a level built into that. Put the bubble in the middle and boom, your camera is level. Now, if you don't have a level on your tripod or you're not using a tripod, a lot of cameras come with a built-in electronic level. Utilize that to get your camera level and your lines straight. And finally, if you don't have any of those things, then look at your shot. Utilize architectural details in your shot that traditionally should be level. Things like door frames, things like windows, things like walls.
To the windows, to the walls, to get your camera.
I'm sorry, just make sure your camera's level. All right, so the next rule I want to talk about is headroom. You want to generally have just a little bit of space above your subject in the top of the frame. Otherwise, it can be a little bit distracting. Why is there so much room up there? Is there something that's going to fall out of the ceiling? Is somebody going to walk up behind me? Is somebody coming down the steps? I don't know. Poor headroom can take the focus off of your subject and what's important to your story, and you do not want that to happen. Now, obviously, there's exceptions to the rule when you're talking about extreme close-ups, but leave max headroom in the 80s. So make sure that you have the proper amount of headroom in most of your shots before you go all Mr. Robot on them. Now let's talk about the rule of thirds, because 3 is a magic number. Now obviously when you shoot, you're supposed to put your subject directly dead center of the frame, because that's where the crosshairs are in the camera, right? Well, not exactly. Using the rule of thirds, you break up your image into 3 equal parts, vertically as well as horizontally. Then, you place your subject or your point of interest where those lines intersect. And by doing so, you create a more interesting image. A lot of cameras actually allow you to put a 3x3 grid right on your screen to help you with this. And when it comes to commercials or YouTube videos, by utilizing the rule of thirds, it allows you to put things on the screen like text, logos, or even photographs. Not that photograph. One thing you want to keep in mind when filming a person and utilizing the rule of thirds is to give them what is called look room. You generally want to have more room in front of them in the direction they're looking than you do behind them. Otherwise, it can feel awkward. And I know what it's like to feel awkward. So the next thing I want to talk about is camera height. Now, as a general rule or starting point, you probably want to have your camera at eye level with your subject. But camera height can have a profound effect on how you tell your story or how your audience sees your characters or subjects. Let's say you raise the camera. Now this can make your subject look a little smaller, it can diminish a character, it can also be a little bit more flattering to your subject if you raise it just a little, because it forces them to lift their chin a little bit and stretch that neck out, and it can hide that double chin there, or you could probably just grow a beard. Now, if we lower the camera, this makes your subject look bigger, maybe more dominant, maybe larger than life. I use this all the time for music videos. I love this shot. So that is camera height. Now, having your camera at eye level is a great starting point, but don't forget to consider how camera height might help to tell your story or how the audience sees your character or subjects. Do you want your subject to look larger than life? Maybe lower the camera. Do you want them to look a little smaller or make your shot a little more flattering? Raising your camera a bit might do the trick. So when it comes to camera height, don't be afraid to experiment. Just like in college. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about are leading lines. And those are just lines in your environment that help to draw the attention of your audience to what's most important in your frame. I am doing that right now. The desk and these monitors on this side are all pointing towards me, as well as the poster over my shoulder. They are all pointing to what is the most important thing in the frame. This guy. You can find leading lines everywhere out there in the world. You can use things like the lines of a brick wall, sidewalks, streets, and roads, stairways, and handrails. Leading lines are everywhere. It's just a matter of you recognizing them and utilizing them to help focus your audience's attention to what's most important in your shot. So keep an eye out for leading lines when you're composing your shots to show the audience what's most important. This guy. And the next rule I want to talk about is more of a recommendation, and that is about creating depth. Utilizing foreground and background elements to make your shot a little more interesting. Now, foreground elements are objects or people you put closer to camera than your main subject. And shockingly, background elements are objects or people you put in back of your main subject. Who'd have thought? Foreground and background elements can definitely help to focus the audience's attention on what you want. They also can tell an interesting story all by themselves. One of the easiest ways to create depth is to not have your subject stand directly in front of a wall. You can instantly create depth just by stepping out a few feet from your background. So don't forget to use foreground and background elements when possible to create a little bit of depth. And finally, watch out for bogeys. Those are going to be distractions that take away from your story and distract the audience. Things like a coffee cup left on the table by a dumb crew member, or just random people wandering around in the back of your frame. Keep an eye out for bogeys or distractions in your frame so the audience can focus on your story and not the random dude walking around in the background. So those are some rules of composition. Hopefully those will help to get your best shot even better. Now, obviously rules are made to be broken, but master the rules and then you can start breaking them. So that should about do it. If you want to learn more about shooting video and editing video, check out the Fronos Photo Guide to Shooting Video and the Guide to Editing Video. I teamed up with Jared Poland to create over 15 hours of educational and hands-on videos, and they are pretty cool. If that sounds like something you might be interested in, check out the link in the description, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks.